Start time. Good afternoon, dear friends. Welcome to the internal communication course. This is our first class where we are going to talk about what internal communication is. I am going to give you 2 practical tools on how to test and evaluate it in your company. So why do you need to study internal communications? The thing is, people who know how to manage internal communications can more easily earn the trust of employees and management, which means they can grow more actively in the company and earn more. Well, it is a requirement for any HR director, HR specialist, or HR business partner to be able to handle internal communications. Without it, change management, employee performance improvement, and corporate culture management are impossible. Motivation is impossible, so this is a very important skill. This is the course website and this is the course syllabus. Today we are learning what internal communications is. In the second session, we will learn how to form internal communications goals. For the third one, we will talk about how to research your target audience and prepare a message for them. In the fourth session, we will explore different communication channels. In the fifth session, we will talk about how to implement internal communications. And in the sixth session, we will discuss how to evaluate what we have implemented. That is the plan. If we are with someone unfamiliar, I will tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Mike Pritchula. I worked at Alpha Bank on TV channel STB and at Wargaming. I consulted for Prep Company, ID Company, and PeopleForce. And basically, I can say that the importance of internal communications, I probably realized almost immediately when I worked at Alpha Bank, where I started out working as a loan officer for 3 months. And I was severely lacking in internal communications, which I constantly told management about, that I was missing this or that information, lacking all sorts of information. When I worked at STB TV channel as HR director, I could fully manage internal communications and inform. And indeed, I briefed all employees or certain groups on many employee issues. In gaming, I encountered global internal communications. I prepared several communications and realized how difficult it is to convey an idea across continents to people with different mindsets, different understandings, and different experiences. The same was true at PP Company, where we had foreigners, and ID Company also had different offices. In general, communication has been very important everywhere I've worked. This is a bit about my achievements, so that as a trainer and coach, you understand who I am and why I'm taking on coaching other people. I have 3 international certifications. And this is a little bit about our academy, so you realize that it's a good place for your development. And about best practices, I also wanted to say that in this course, as in all courses, I'm going to rely on one hand on my own experience and on the other hand on some best practices that exist in the world. You can write about yourself, your job, in the chat to introduce yourself. I've told you about myself. You can write your position, and I'll talk next about homework assignments. In this course, you'll have homework assignments focused on practice so that you can practice something, get feedback, and we'll give you a diploma if you complete them all. We issue diplomas on the online platform Accredible, a great platform where Google also issues diplomas, so it's worth it. For the class program, we'll talk about the value of communication with employees, how communication helps the business, how to conduct a communication audit in the company, your current situation, and how to conduct an employee communication survey. To understand where there's room for improvement, perhaps to show management that communication is poor, it's lacking, and more communication is needed. This will help you. So let's start with this. What are communications? We call them internal communications. Now, by the way, we mistakenly assume that these are just some kind of mailings. We think internal communication is writing to employees about something once a month. That's internal communication. No. Very rare, sporadic informing can't be called communication at all. It's far from real communication. So what are communications? It's the transfer of meanings from one person to another, from company to staff, from managers to employees. It helps people understand why they work for this company, what the purpose of their work is. You know, when companies or managers say, "Why don't our employees understand?" and then they complain about something. Why don't they understand that we don't have money? Why don't they understand that we need to work harder now? Why don't they understand that we need to set, our goals? It's all due to a lack of communication. You're not conveying the meaning to them. When you wrote that employees should set goals because we're launching an OKR system, That wasn't communication. You didn't prepare for it. You didn't execute it well. You didn't even understand what it was. That's why we're learning in this course what internal communications is. I'll put it this way. For example, when I was working in gaming, the company was large, 4,500 employees, 15 offices. There was a saying that in gaming, the sun never sets. It meant that the sun was always shining in one of the company's offices because there were offices all over the world. So there was an internal communications department, and there were employees in different countries who were responsible for that because this department ensured effective communication and made sure people understood what management, HR, or others wanted to convey. In other words, the company realized this was important. The department was staffed by people trained in communications, who studied communications and related fields at universities. Now that's the right approach. And the communications were pretty good. We're going to be looking at many things. It's also about building connections. It's not just about what managers think. Employees' opinions are equally important. Communications help build dialogue. Generally, communication is described as two-way interaction. The key word here is two-way. When you send out a message, imagine your company does a decent job of informing employees. You have regular emails, some kind of corporate newsletter online or offline, whatever you prefer. You have meetings where management tells employees something. This is informing but not yet communicating. How to turn informing into communication. You need to start listening to your employees. If you hold a meeting and say, now it's time for questions and answers for the next half hour or 15 minutes, and employees start asking questions and you, the management, start answering them, that's also communication. If instead of email, you publish news on any social network or newsfeed with a comment feature, and people comment on that news, that's communication. In email, people can't comment. It's generally a weak communication channel. It's infrequent. If a company doesn't send many emails, it might grab attention because something rarely comes in there. As a regular channel, it's poor because people can't even like something. It's better to communicate via Messenger, Slack, or similar, where you can at least like, dislike, or something. And of course, write a comment. So this is about being two-way. Good internal communications. They proactively gather people's opinions in various ways. We had an internal communications manager at STB TV channel. It wasn't a large department. It wasn't some super trendy tool. It was simply a person whose job was to build communication with employees. And we sat in a shared office, an open plan one. And this person was often not at her desk. Because this person was constantly talking to someone somewhere. Okay, I'm not expressing this well. She smoked. It was bad that she smoked, but good that she was where people gather and socialize informally. She often knew a lot that management didn't know because of employees. And since I have this role of internal communications manager, employees don't expect anything from her. There are no complaints about her, no questions asked, just a person who writes some nice letters. So many people talked to her, she gathered information, it was helpful. She could then relay what people were saying, it was valuable. It's mostly about results. Communications allow facilitating and supporting changes in the company. I'll say this, one of the biggest failures in implementing change is that the company can't communicate these changes well enough. That is, they want to make changes, but they can't effectively communicate these changes. Something doesn't work out, something doesn't get through to the audience, and that something will change. It doesn't work that way. We ensure business strategy execution, people's safe work, customer care, and create innovative organizations. We support culture by aligning business plans with how people see their world. By the way, managing corporate culture and conveying corporate values is impossible without effective communication. Even a poster on the wall isn't about corporate culture. Communication plays a crucial role in building and managing corporate culture. Results are the main focus of communication. It's important to understand this. It's not just about informing someone about something. It's about how we achieved what we wanted to achieve. It's important to be able to set goals because evaluating results makes sense when we wanted to achieve something. Next, it's all about change. Essentially, that's what internal communications does. We think about where we need to move people from and to. Thanks to communications, people now think that's the problem. In reality, people can influence the situation themselves. We need to move them forward on this, to promote, to make them more proactive rather than just complaining about circumstances. Oops. Insight is our specialty, our meaning those of us in internal communications. Our main asset is our unique understanding of the company's employees. That's often why HR professionals are hired, because there's a lack of someone who understands people well, someone who would understand why people behave in certain ways, what people think. Many managers are starting to realize that some things employees will only tell HR. So they want to hire an HR person so that employees can talk to them, and HR can come and convey an idea. We, those involved in internal communications, serve as a bridge between different groups of employees in the company. Therefore, we know their interests, thoughts, and actions in detail. A person doing internal communications really needs to understand people well, what interests them, what they care about, and so on. Your network determines your net worth. Whatever problem you face, it's always related to what our colleagues understand. Your informal network is your window into your people's world. Your network will always help you find the right answer, why people are unhappy, how to do a complex project, what people really care about, what stories exist of people living out our purpose. To get answers to all these questions, ask your network. This is one of the most important investments you'll make as a communicator. That is, if you have the specific task of improving internal communications, or just doing internal communications, start developing your network. Start meeting people. Start socializing with them. Invite them for lunch, tea, coffee, ask them questions, chat with them informally. Because if you're just sitting in your office trying to do internal communications, it's not going to work that way. Next, what are employee communications? It's about how the organization communicates. It's about conversations between different groups of people with a common goal or purpose. It's about messaging to employees, listening to employees, or how executives guide the company to success. Context is very important. In communications, it's super important because the same meaning, the same message presented in different contexts can be understood very differently. That's why global communications often don't work well, because recipients of global communications have different contexts and interpret information differently. Therefore, it's better to adapt such communications. In gaming, for example, they would write some local communication for an office, and underneath it global communication, i.e. something common for everyone, but then an explanation considering the context. If you have a small company, it's easier. If it's big, it's more difficult, but it's still good to create a common context in the organization. Because, okay, communications can be adapted to the context, but people work in organizations and need to interact. And for people to interact properly, they also need a shared context. For example, when I worked in gaming, before effective communications were built, there were huge problems between the main office in Cyprus and the offices which were then in Minsk, when Olgaming was in Minsk. There were huge issues because the contexts were very different. The people in Cyprus, often Cypriots plus some international managers from Europe or the US, had no idea what Minsk was. And those who worked in Minsk were people from Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine at that time. And those people also didn't really understand the guys in Cyprus, what they were thinking, how they made decisions, who they were, and so on. So in such companies, it's very important to create a shared context. We reduce misunderstandings between employees. That is, good effective internal communications solve roughly the same problems that team building and corporate events solve in a company. Only team building is costly, complicated, and time-consuming, while communications are basically not that long, expensive, or time-consuming. We simplify collaboration by providing a common view of affairs. When everyone is in sync with each other, the organization immediately starts performing better. Especially, for example, if the company operates on an OKR system where it's important that everyone aligns their actions with the company's strategy, or it's just important when a company develops a strategy and wants to achieve something. Like something new, that's where it's really important for everyone to be in sync. Defining internal communications. Planned use of communication activities to systematically influence employee knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors. Now that's interesting too. We'll be talking about this in future classes. Our job is not just to inform employees. Our task is not just to give some information. Our task is also to influence attitudes, because a person's attitude will affect how they perceive information, and it's very important to influence employee behavior. So when we plan communications, we will ask ourselves not only what we want to convey, for example, that there will be no salary review, that the 13th salary will be cancelled, that some nice bonus, some benefit will be cancelled, or something else. We don't just want to inform people like, dear employees, there will be no salary review. We need to influence their attitude, convince people that it's not a disaster, and influence behavior so that the lack of a salary review is not a reason to work less. On the contrary, it's a reason to work harder so that a salary review can happen as soon as possible after that. That's what internal communications is about. So, there are several levels to the value of internal communications. We'll look at this in detail now. Content creator is the basic level, behavior driver is the more advanced level, the facilitator support level is an even more advanced level, and asset builder, this is the top level of communication. It would be useful to look at this and think about what level communications are at in our company. So here we'll have all these levels. Who can actually do communications? It could be an internal communications department or employee within HR. For example, in gaming, it was the communications department. By the way, it was initially within the company, but then they even moved it outside the company, reporting directly to the CEO. On the STB TV channel, we had an internal communications officer. In other cases, it was just me and my colleagues. So it could simply be a department. It could be a department or an employee in a department, internal communications. In some companies, the CEO personally takes on communications. In some companies, the PR department handles both external and internal communications. Sometimes it's the marketing department, and worst of all is when no one is responsible for it. Sometimes there's also the option of an office manager or assistant to the CEO, trying to handle internal communication from time to time. Now, these are the levels. Content creator. That's when the roots of internal communication lie in corporate journalism. Employees need content about the company. Someone creates that content, publishes it on a website, offline newspaper, online newspaper, results, communication outcomes. The results here are number of views, usage activity. That is, they analyze how many people saw, read, liked, did something else, commented. It's a very basic level. Behavior driver. Here, the results of communication are knowledge, understanding, and behaviors. That is what people know, feel, do. These are the 3 standard communication goals that we'll talk about later when we discuss communication objectives. A typical action we want to achieve through communication is to influence employee retention, for example. As I said, to convey information that there won't be a salary review or that there won't be any extra bonuses, but in a way that prevents everyone from leaving. Increasing cooperation between employees, helping focus on the right things, following rules, promoting the company externally, positive reactions to changes. If we know what employees should do, it's easy for us to determine how they should feel and what they should know to implement the desired behaviors. Next, support facilitator. This is when internal communications are used by various leaders, managers, project managers, and other top managers or experts as a tool. That is, internal communications help others achieve goals. This is about the role of a business partner for the company. The results of the work here are the results of the people we help. We help departments do their jobs by delivering messages to employees. For example, financiers want that when any department or employee in the company makes purchases, the buyer should consider at least 3 offers. For the buyer to negotiate, for the buyer to ask for discounts. So the finance department wants something from everyone, but they can't influence directly. They can write, "Dear colleagues, please, when you buy something, ask for 3 quotes." And the respected colleagues look at it like, "Oh, these financiers are annoying. These cheapskates are just stingy." What do they even understand? What 3 quotes? We only have one provider for this service or product in the market. Forget about it. They sit there buying expensive tea, chocolates, nice office, cool chairs, expensive. They all have MacBooks and they want us to save money. Well, that's not going to work. So the financiers go to the communications department. Listen, we need to do something to get employees to buy things cheaper. We sometimes look at what they're buying and realize that where there's a discount built in, they just need to ask, and they're not asking for it. And then internal communications start. They begin thinking, what do we want people to do? What do we want people to believe? And what information do we need to give them? Then the communication is developed. The whole structure is designed. We'll learn how to do this. So in this support and facilitator role, you can call it the business communication partner role. We not only deliver messages, but we help better understand employees, share useful insights about employees with all managers. So we say, listen, financiers, if you write a letter saying, let's all save money, everyone will ignore you. It's useless. Let's think together about how to do this correctly, beautifully, effectively. And here we become part of the overall company management process. And then there's the asset builder. This is the top level of communication. Here we help form employee engagement and a positive culture. People in healthy organizations think and act together, helping it grow and achieve its goals. That is, when through communications we achieve a point where people love the company, care about the company, and strive to go the extra mile for the company. This is the top level in communication. What value do they create? Performing basic work, creating results, supporting others, and building intangible assets. And here's a description of what's included, what activities, what actions to take to do this. This is a brief summary, a short synopsis for what we'll learn next in the course. Now, it's very useful if you're thinking about internal communications. And if you're here, you've probably thought about it. It's helpful to start conducting an audit. What's important to consider here? Possible mistakes. What you measure is what you will do. So if you're looking at the number of views, that's wrong. We're going to talk about other things now. Don't forget about what works. Don't focus only on what isn't working. Listen up, staff. Here's a survey to help you with that, which I'll show you later. Don't look at what other companies are doing. Don't make it hard to stop together and be ready to hear the truth. Now means how to take an audit. There is such a thing as an audit wheel. We're going to take a look at it now. It encompasses what we do and whether we are doing it right. In fact, it covers all directions. We're visually looking, and then we'll go into more detail in each direction. The first is to have goals. We have to make sure that when we commiserate, we have goals for those communications. Our communication goals are linked to the company's goals with business objectives, and we try to achieve them. For this, 3 questions. You'll have this audit in the form of a tool. I'll show you there a little bit later. Then we need to understand if the tops are involved in communications, the top manager, the senior management. Are they involved? Are we engaging them? Do we give them feedback? Do we ask them to get involved in any way? So it's really not just about them, it's about us, because they may have no idea that it's important, yet be very open to being involved. Therefore, several points cover the involvement of top management in internal communication. Then strategy. And do you have a communication strategy? Generally, it is the norm in business for every significant part of an organization to have a strategy. There is an organization-wide strategy, and there is a functional strategy. Marketing strategy, sales strategy, anything procurement, logistics, HR strategy, recruiting strategy, total reward strategy, internal communications, or simply a communication strategy. Well, here are the attributes, the communication strategy that you should have in your company that we're checking. So the answer is yes, there is. Or not? No, it doesn't fit. And you need to specifically match all of these points, which you will then analyze in detail after the class and analyze carefully. Next up are resources. You have to agree that it is very difficult to do something when you have no resources, no financial resources, no information resources, nothing. Your entire resource is you, your computer, and email. It's not much of a resource. So yes, there's a VC acronym here. It's internal communications. And in English, they write IC. By the way, it is very common to abbreviate IC, internal communications. So if you see VC, it's short for IC, internal communication. There's all these resources and quite material and information resources in the form of access to people. Well, anyway, you'll see it all. Further channels. Information is transmitted to people in some way, through something. And it's important that these channels are properly selected, that they're used, that they're the right channels. That's why there's such a checklist to these channels here. Then the role of executives, we say we have separately top management. In our internal communications, it's top management, and there are rank and file executives. And it's important to work with them too. They play a big role. What I liked about Wargaming was that the management team was very well put together. I'll give you a simple example. When any communication was sent out to all employees at the company, the same communication was first sent out 3 days in advance by the manager only, with an explanation of how best to communicate that to the staff. And the executives had 3 days to ask any questions and get answers, so that then when this information is received by employees from supervisors can already get answers. And the leaders, it wasn't forbidden in principle, used it as a resource. They could come to their employees, there's going to be that communication soon. And so you please pay attention or consider, and people are like, oh, cool, we're from the head, we're turning something in early. I mean, it was a little manipulative, but everyone loved it. To managers, because they could communicate something with employees before the employees find out from the whole company. Employees that their supervisor brings something to the table. And HR and internal communications executives became like supporters. That's the idea, because they're getting something of value. Insights. By insights, we mean a clear understanding of our people. We call that the target audience. And it is important to realize and understand not just the people sitting next to us. Because if a company has multiple offices, multiple locations, multiple countries, it's important to have insights from everywhere. By the way, very often that's why companies introduce the position of HR business partner, HR, in order to. These are the positions that worked more closely with all employees and could gather insight and report back to the central team, could carry leadership. That is, so that the things in which employees are cooked do not become something separate and incomprehensible to top management. So insights are really important here. So it's insights as a kind of idea as well as insights. You could say insider information that their employees are thinking, talking, planning, but not yet reporting to management. So for example, if you can say employees are saying that if there's no wage review, they're going to quit, it means you have insights. Or for example, if the employee writes that there will be no New Year's bonus, but promise a wage review in March, they'll be fine with it. These are also insights. Or like what's in there, I don't know. Employees say someone has a personal relationship with someone. That's the kind of rumor, what in English is called, I think, a grapevine, then the guests before the gossip. It's this whole insight thing too. So insight is less about understanding what's in employees' heads, what they're talking about, and using that to make the right communications. That's what an internal communications audit is all about. From now on, you can fill in on the platform developed for Mike Academy. It's called Papa HR, an easy name to remember. We're going to be there for a possible checklist for now. Then there are some other documents that are useful. There are different audits there now, you have them on your screen. Internal communications audits can be registered. It's available to everyone. So you go to the Papai website, register, choose one of the 3 languages, interface, and go through an internal communications audit and get a report on all the areas we've covered. There will be recommendations later. We publish the checklist themselves first and finalize the recommendations later. That is, the recommendations will appear in the interface of you later. Recommendations right in chat and Telegram. That's where the help is. Not my chat room. Well, whatever. In short, you can find Chat Papa on Telegram and read all the news. Compilation of the audit. In order to put together an audit, you need to analyze the documents that exist on internal communications, maybe describe something, do some data research, such as a corporate portal, then traffic, conduct opinion research. We're going to talk about him now and prepare a report. So, document analysis. Here's an example of the kinds of documents that are worth analyzing to understand how internal communications work, good or bad, whether not related to business strategy and so on. Opinion research is a questionnaire. The questionnaire, we have it designed in Google Spreadsheet, in Google Forms. I'll show it to you now. It looks like this, which means that when you follow the link, you can copy it for yourself. And it looks like this. There are questions you get enough information when you need it, and the option of consent. How would you rate the degree of awareness of what is going on in the company? How would you rate the information you get? There's a few criteria here. What communication channels do you prefer? You can put yours in, can't you? What type of information you are most interested in? How often would you like to receive? You have a deep sense that the company hears you and can always put their thoughts on it. How would you rate your supervisor's communication skills? It's anonymous. It doesn't give a name, so it's okay. And what else the company could do to improve communication? Here's a questionnaire like this to help you understand what's going on there. It's also a good idea to conduct a few interviews or focus groups and ask people what you have good things to say about communications in the company. What's wrong with not liking it? What could be improved? What's missing? That's the kind of live multiple conversations, because a questionnaire, that's cool, that's great, but live conversations, they'll give some sort of real stories, real examples, real testimonials. And then you prepare a report. Describe why you are conducting, how you analyzed your findings, prioritizations, and next steps. That's the way to do it. Homework to choose from for those already on the course, those not on the course, join in. Either conduct an employee survey, prepare a report, or do an audit on our platform and summarize your comments as well. Books in English, there is a good book reads the main thing about communication with employees. And that's it for today. We're going to talk further about how to formulate internal communication goals in a company. Second session. Thank you to everyone who participated. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.